May 14th, 2026, and welcome to episode 130 of the Driving Forward podcast. Whether you're joining us live or listening to us on one of our 18 platforms, including Resch Across America Radio, where we broadcast every Tuesday evening from 4 to 5 p.m. Central Time, we appreciate your support. So today, there's some huge news, at least for us, huge news out of the Supreme Court. They unanimously ruled against the freight broker position in the Montgomery versus Carib transport case, allowing a negligent hiring lawsuit against broker C.H. Robinson to move forward. The case stemmed from a truck crash that left Swan Montgomery permanently injured after a carrier selected by the broker, in this case C.H., allegedly operated unsafely. CH argues that the Federal Aviation Administration Authorization Act, or FAAA, preempted state negligent claims against the broker, but the court ruled that the law's safety exception applies because the claims relate directly to motor vehicle safety. In simple terms, the court said brokers cannot rely on federal preemption as a blanket shield when plaintiffs claim that they negligently selected an unsafe carrier. The decision will have a huge effect across our industry: trucking, brokerage, insurance, and freight tech operations. Really, I see the winners on this potentially are the attorneys, but while this ruling doesn't automatically make brokers liable for crashes, it significantly increases the legal exposure around carrier selection and safety vetting practices of carriers. Brokerages will likely face greater pressure to document carrier qualification processes, and inversely, carriers will have to produce these processes as well to brokers. Brokers will have to monitor safety scores, validate insurance and authority, which a lot of them are doing already, but they need to know when that changes. They need to pay a lot more attention than what potentially some of them are. And they'll have to maintain a stronger audit trail as around the load tenders and the movement of the freight. For the transportation industry, this ruling reinforces safety oversight is no longer just an operational concern. It's now a central legal and financial risk management issue for brokers and 3PLs nationwide. A couple other comments I've read on this recently said this is going to clean up a lot of the transactions with the low-cost carriers, the carriers that are operating in ways that are confusing, and we haven't. Many companies can't figure out how companies take freight that low. They've been cutting corners. It'll force that spot market end of the industry to really operate cleanly and communicate very well with its customer base, in this case, brokers. Next week, we have Chris Sonic on with 10 Logistics, and we're talking about freight growth, fleet readiness, and leadership. I've known Chris for a number of years now, and he's not been on the show yet, so I'm looking forward to having him on and chatting about all things. He's also a fellow Minnesotan. Following that, wow, we have two Minnesotans. Following that, we have Todd Waldron. We'll be chatting more on technology and establishing trust, and chatting about his move to Repower, which he announced earlier this week on LinkedIn. We'll probably go through a little bit of this Montgomery versus Carib transport case, as well as a couple weeks from now, there'll be a lot more established discussion at that point. And then following Todd, we'll have Melanie Simard on with Isaac Instruments. Melanie has a wonderful life story related to the industry. I just love chatting with her. She's such a positive person. And I can't wait. If you've never met Melanie, I can't wait for you all to hear about her background and get to know her a little bit. Upcoming events. Actually, one thing I'm going to say before I get too far into this is I am still having problems enunciating. I've got these braces on, and yeah, Chris, that is you. You just popped up. That's the Sonic. So, but so if I'm enunciating weird or talking strange, that's why. So, upcoming events: ATA midyear, May 17th through the 20th. We have Missy Hetland and Susan Mayo there. Following that, we have the Midwest European Trucker event with Robert Bain. The MTA Spring Golf Tournament, that's Minnesota Trucking Association, June 1st in Ham Lake. Samsara Beyond, Mike Solars and myself, in June 23rd through 26th in Las Vegas at Aria. If you're around, love to chat with you there. NCMC, that's the North Carolina Management Conference, the 19th through the 21st of July. TCA Refrigerated Meeting, the 22nd through the 24th of July. I'll be speaking at that event. The Texas Trucking Association Annual Conference and the Minnesota Trucking Association Annual Conference. So we have a huge stacked up list through July. A little bit of a reprieve in August, and we were just on a phone call today on how we're going to try to multiply the team to be in so many different places at one time in September and early October, because everybody puts their shows right on top of one another, and it's very difficult to manage. All right, on to what we're here to talk about. Technology in trucking and brokerage has never been more important than it is now, and it's probably never been more misunderstood. Everywhere you turn right now, people are talking about AI. AI this, AI that, agents, automation, machine learning, and all the latest buzzwords. And yeah, AI is part of the conversation today, but the bigger issue is technology as a whole. And what we're seeing across the industry is a massive gap. Some companies are using technology to move faster, make better decisions, support their people, protect margin, and serve customers at just generally a higher level. Others are buried in disconnected systems, bad data, manual workarounds, spreadsheets, tribal knowledge, and reports nobody really trusts. So the primary message is AI is not going to fix that by itself. It needs more. If your process is broken, AI can make the broken process move faster. If your data is bad, AI can give you bad answers with a lot of confidence. If your systems don't talk to each other, AI becomes another layer sitting on top of the same old mess. Today, we're going to have a real conversation about where technology is actually helping trucking companies and brokerages, where leaders are still struggling, and what companies need to understand before they chase the next shiny tool. I've got Jeff Resch on from Hyperscale, and he's been on the show once before. Robert Bain as well from GLCS joining us. Both bring a different perspective to this conversation, at least in their current roles. We're going to talk about AI, but we're also going to talk about data, integrations, workflow, ops, adoption, leadership, and just generally how to run a freight business in a world where technology is moving faster than most companies can keep up with. Well, gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
That was a long intro. I mean,
it's beautiful, Nate.
You know, a long intro.
Didn't even get to the BMO Harris stuff.
Yeah. Well, I didn't even say that. I mean, I figure Montgomery versus Carib had to occupy at least a few.
Oh, it definitely won out, that 100%.
Yeah. I mean, what's your guys' quick take on that before we jump into the tech discussion?
Which one?
Montgomery versus Carib, the ruling.
Okay.
I'd like to see, what the legal experts have to say. I'm not an expert on what's going to be litigated, what kind of systems have to be put in place. But I think the one thing that's, it's going to hold true with all this, technology is going to have a bigger place in making sure that carriers are vetted. And if you're not playing in that space right now, you better learn how to figure it out, because everything's discoverable. And yeah, I'd be curious to see a little bit more in depth on what the experts are saying on this.
Bain, what's your thought?
Well, as you know, I always have an opinion on everything.
Of course.
But to Jeff's point, I mean, certainly I reached out to a couple of attorney friends and, told, hey, I'm sure your phone's going crazy, but Godspeed today, and would love to chat once you're a little calmed down. To be fair, it doesn't necessarily change a lot of stuff. If you look at what do we look at? We're looking at a catastrophic accident. In case of a catastrophic event, whether it is a fatality or large scale injury, any entity that was involved in that in any way, shape, or form, whether it is a broker, a carrier, a manufacturer, they're all going to get pulled in. And because any attorney worth their salt is going to say, hey, all of you are culpable on some level in this. And so knowing that, not a lot changes. The one thing I will say, we talk about this in the green room a little bit, is if you are especially a freight broker, the 2 phone calls you need to make today are to your either in-house or general counsel and to your insurance company. You need to have those 2 phone calls right now.
Those are, my first response when this came out was the people who win are the attorneys and the insurance companies. So
Yep.
But the reality of it is, if you really think about it, so my opinion, just to occupy a couple more minutes on this, my opinion is this is going to clean up some of the lower, I kind of said it earlier, this is going to clean up some of the lower rate carriers that are out there. You're not going to be able to hide. That's one thing technology is giving us now. The bad actors are starting to be identified, maybe not in the systemic way we want them to, whether it's through the administration or whomever, but this is one more component of that. So I sort of predicted that this was going to swing in this direction, because everything else is swinging in this direction, which is holding companies accountable for their what could be construed as a bad decision. So be interesting to see where it goes. Be interested to see what the impact is to certain brokers and moreover certain carriers. I think even though this is a ruling against brokerages, I actually think it's going to impact the poor operating carriers more. All right, so into technology. So we're going to talk about the gap in technology. And Jeff, you've been at a whole bunch of shows. Bain, you've been at a whole bunch of shows. But I know I've had conversations with you both about this, and it's how wide of a gap there is in technology at organizations, and not only the technology itself, but the understanding of the possible technology out there, and the fact that AI or automations have one direction with them, which is the facts, and then we have all this other information that's out there, which typically isn't facts. I've heard statements like AI is 70% accurate, et cetera, and that's kind of all misinformation. But so what are you guys, when you look across trucking companies and brokers right now, how wide is that tech gap between companies that get it and the ones that are struggling with it? So Jeff, you start that off, please.
Yeah, it's really a great question, and it really kind of came to light for me personally. I was at Dart Transit, ATS, and Uber Freight prior to joining Hyperscale over the last 30 years, and I came from big organizations that really had the tech figured out. Right, there wasn't very many gaps with those companies. Now, fast forward to now, where I'm talking to companies anywhere from 100 trucks to 20,000 trucks, and I was just dumbfounded by the amount of gaps in technology there is at every level, from the 100 truck to the 20,000 truck carrier, and I think they know it now. I think if there's any time in history, I think people are starting to realize today that we do have a gap, and the gaps could be from systems that can't communicate to one another. A lot of people want to talk with me regarding, how to get set up with AI. And it really kind of comes down to, are your systems compatible to do it? Do you have the data organized in a streamlined fashion? And can you connect, via API with some of these tools? And a lot of times, I talk to companies that have the ability to do that with 2 out of the 4 products, but then they have 2 products that don't get there. So I think there's a pretty wide gap on just kind of from a system standpoint. And then I think you kind of mentioned this multiple times in podcasts and written text on LinkedIn. If you don't enter information into the system correctly, it doesn't matter how good the AI is or how good all these tools are. Garbage in, garbage out. So I think there's a couple different layers that people have to really kind of take a look in the mirror and make sure that they're ready to go. But the gap is much wider than I originally thought. To kind of recap my answer.
So, Bain, do you think larger companies are more mature with technology, or do smaller companies sometimes move a little faster because they're less buried in complexity?
Larger organizations, from my experience, and Nate, I'm sure you've got some similar experiences. They've got some individuals that are very, very well versed in these things, and they're able to disperse that knowledge across the organization. So they have the appearance and have the operational aptitude that shows they have a good grasp on the technology. When you look at, to your point, Nate, of the smaller organizations, they can move faster because there's just less need for adoption because there's just fewer people. So the adoption curve is a lot faster. But what you'll typically find, if you look individually across larger organizations, the gap is significant and probably about the same as you would see from a small org to a large one, with the seat level individuals and the in-house experts on the tech side within larger organizations. They're able to, kind of create an umbrella over the team because, again, you have those resources that are dedicated just to the technology. Jeff, a good example, look at what Uber Freight, put together, from coming out of stealth, going to market, running up the numbers. They had towers of data scientists building their product and building the different tools that are being used. Redwood, very similar, and so again, you have companies that have large budgets, large number of people versus, so you have those folks focused on that versus then the operations team is focused on operating. And so again, there's a gap within the organization, but then there's also that large gap between the organizations. Does that make sense?
100%. Jeff, what's your thoughts? You've actually worked for a few larger organizations, so.
Yeah, the thing about large organizations, and Bain, I think you have it right. They operate in columns, right? And each column has its own hierarchy, and these hierarchies don't always communicate very well to the next column, right? Where small organizations, they're more horizontally managed, where everyone does a little bit of everything. So they're more nimble. Everyone kind of has their foot or their ear to the ground, understanding, what's taking place. And I think, for larger organizations, one of the things that I kind of see in, my role today is they're adopting some of the technology in the same fashion, right? So like, for an example, like I'm in the billing department and now I'm going to create an agent that just does billing, right? I'm in the customer service department. Okay, I'm going to do this agent that just does order entry, right? Great. So all these column heads, or these leaders in each one of these individual, segments of the organization, are the happiest people in the world, because now they just automated a segment of their work. But the problem is, all these systems need to talk to each other, right? And I think this is, where one of the big gaps are for large organizations and smaller organizations. They're early enough where if they can adopt technology to kind of bridge some of those gaps, as they continue to grow, the growth is going to be easier. So like, one of the things that we do, and just to get a shameless plug in, but Like we're doing a command center. It's really like this. It's not an agent. It's this communication AI that connects all these different systems together, whether it be maintenance, customer service, load booking, appointment making, talking to drivers, dispatch, billing, you name it. It happens in a horizontal fashion, very similar to a 200 truck company, but you can apply it to a 10,000 truck company. The question really is that sounds great, and everyone's like, oh yes, let's go ahead and do it. But do your systems talk, right? Do you have APIs? Do they have the ability to connect to this communication layer so you can pull all that information in? So yeah, I think larger organizations can have great technology. They have the smartest people in the world. They generally have great management, but oftentimes they're limited to what they do. And in order for this industry to kind of move forward, we have to get past that.
Great points. Kind of leads me to the thought, we're talking about the gap in technology here, right? Or even the gap of awareness of technology. So Jeff, you mentioned the integration of systems and can they talk to each other? Most systems, even when you think they can't, you typically can figure out a way to get them to talk in some way, shape, or form. In some instances, it's very difficult to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But is the gap really about the software companies are using, or is it more about their education process, data, and capability of adoption?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. Number one, it starts with data integrity, right? Now, the interesting thing about the data problem, that's actually an opportunity, for AI to help as well. So, like, just to give you a really simple example, at Dart Transit, we had 7,000 trailers, right? So keeping track of trailers was a complete disaster all the time. And one of the best ways to kind of control that was when a driver, dropped at a location and picked up another trailer to go to the next location to pick up their next load. When things break down, it's the driver didn't upload the trailer number into the system, and therefore it's in the TMS, right? Sounds like a very trivial, small problem, but if you have this multiplied by hundreds of drivers per day, all of a sudden these trailer pools get out of whack and you're deadheading trucks all over the place. Now, what could happen with AI to help with data integrity issues is now you have this AI system that says, okay, 15 minutes after the driver is expected to leave, or the GPS shows that the driver's left a particular location via geofence, if the driver hasn't updated a trailer, the AI can text, can call, can message, whatever, that driver, and make sure the next moment in time that they're safe to add that information back in, to put that information in. Sounds very trivial and small, but if you do it at scale, it's actually a big thing. And that's just one example, right? Another example could be, something like a depart macro, right? What time did the driver leave? Well, that's going to trigger the telematics, and the telematics is going to trigger the track and trace, and the track and trace is going to say, hey, customer service person, this driver's running late or not running late. And if you're dealing with a broker, then a broker is going to call you because the paper trail didn't happen. So it creates all that wasted time and energy just because something so trivial as a depart shipper wasn't added into the system. And I think AI can help with that. But to your point, Nate, you have to take 3 steps back and say, okay, what is my problem? Is data entry a problem? Okay. How do you want to address that? Is it a management issue? Is it a personnel issue? Is it a systems issue? Okay, if it's a personnel issue, well, you got to do, this is a people business at this stage of the game. You got to work with the people. If it's your people are overwhelmed, people quit, whatever that, all these processes are kind of falling apart because of the economics, and you just can't hire anybody because you just don't have the money to do it. Maybe like a low cost, solution for AI to help with some of these small things, could be the answer. I don't know. But so I think the data is paramount to make these systems work. Now, some of the systems, like, they're archaic, right? And, for a tech company to scale, they have to have some resemblance of ease in rinse and repeating. Hey, this TMS, we got these guys set up, and rinse repeat with 30 other carriers. And now we got this one set up. Now here's 50 carriers. Well, if all you're doing is customizing these solutions for one particular customer, sure, you can do it. Now, you're more apt to do it with a 10,000 truck company than you are a 150 truck company, right? Because so many resources have to go into that. So that's why I say it's both. I think it just kind of depends, on the situation a little bit. But data, you can't get away from the data problem. Data integrity, you just can't walk away from it.
No, agreed. And a couple of comments on that one, and then I got a question for Bain before we hit break here. But it's the awareness of those agents and how they apply, I think, to the mid-market and small market fleets, that just add an agent and they're deciding on whether or not they even want to do it. Some of them don't even understand AI whatsoever. So I think you have that's that gap we were talking about. Sure, if you understand the technology, it sounds like it's a great idea. But if you don't understand that technology, you're still in the discovery phase. So Bain, what's the most common manual workarounds you see in trucking and brokerage that leadership might not even realize are happening?
Ooh, man. I'll stick in operations for that. Pricing. You talk to 100 different brokers. I'll stick on brokerage for a bit, but trucking is very similar. There's 100 different ways to price. Ultimately, though, pricing, and all three of us have worked in arenas where pricing is being done. There was that idea that pricing was an art, right? You had all these different pieces of information, all these different things to think about, and you needed to have that kind of beautiful mind, that Russell Crowe, to like, I can figure out the numbers, and you have the Zach Galifianakis meme, and you got all the numbers in the background, and like this person's going to create your pricing. Also, like as I just said, you have all these different data points. It's data. There is science behind pricing, and then really what the art is, what our tolerance is for margin. So that is where I see a lot of manual workarounds where people say, "Oh, well, the machine or the AI, whatever it is, doesn't do it the way I do, and I keep winning business. So therefore, I'm going to do the manual workaround because it's what it does. It creates a moat around their job. They're showing that like, hey, I provide value this way based on how I do it. The problem is you are now pigeonholing yourself into that role because you'll never be able to leave if you're the only person who can do it. You can also never duplicate yourself, so you can't grow the team. But also at some point, someone's going to call your bluff and say, yes, you're bringing in 10 loads a day, but if we do this scientifically and we can bring in 20 loads a day, you've actually been hindering the business, not helping it.
Right. 100%. Any of the manual workarounds out there, I think the defined term is the workaround, right? So you're not using it per a way that someone else might say is the proper way to do this process, or the solution you have doesn't fit that need, so you've created an external process to achieve something. And in some cases, this is one of the reasons why on our business process assessments we kick them off with leadership, and then we go to the frontline workers and walk through. We don't want that leadership with us because the leadership vision and the frontline worker may be completely disconnected, and it's very commonly disconnected. So the question I want to leave you guys at the break here is AI primarily a way to solve for manual workarounds? And with that, we're going to take a 1.5 minute break. We'll see you all in just a bit.
If your fleet's downtime looks like chaos, you're missing out on GLCS. In the time-critical world of trucking and logistics, every minute counts. Meet GLCS, your expert partner in managed IT and technology services. We integrate seamlessly with your team, bringing seasoned IT professionals with deep trucking and logistics expertise. Imagine your software updates running smoothly, complex issues resolved quickly, and operations humming with efficiency. GLCS has your back. Our support doesn't just fix problems, it prevents them with our industry connections and proactive approach. We keep your trucks rolling and your brokers working. Think of us as the added resource your company needs to unleash its full potential. Visit glcs.net today and keep your business driving forward. GLCS, where efficiency meets expertise.
And we are back. So I left you with the question of, is AI a way to solve for manual workarounds? And is that something that companies, if you do have a manual workaround that's high volume or requiring a lot of tribal knowledge, is that your primary target for your first AI agent deployment? So Jeff, you want to pick that one up?
Yeah, I think my answer is going to be different today than it was 3 months ago.
Okay.
And 3 months ago, my answer would have been, yeah, we can help with some of those workarounds and create an agent to solve this kind of broken process. The problem with that is that tribal knowledge piece, the piece that you can't necessarily, just kind of teach, or you hadn't been able to teach the AI in the past. You'd create this agent and you would say, here are the rules for the agent, and off you go do your thing, right? I think today, I think the world's different in those 3 months. Where I think this is going, and we've got some products here that we're going to be releasing soon that are in beta, right now. What the future, in the short-term future, because let's say the next 6 months, because everything is changing exceptionally fast with the power of compute and these language models learning quicker and quicker. The way that I see it is, you're going to be able to train the AI just like you would a human being. So for an example, that tribal knowledge that we're kind of talking about, Jimmy over at such and such customer, he always has this issue, and I don't know when it's going to happen, but usually when this takes place, then this is going to happen, or there's kind of like 2 or 3 questions you have to kind of answer in the background. Well, if you can take that tribal knowledge and you can train someone else with that knowledge, theoretically you should be able to train the AI in the same possible way. Now, in the world of an agent where it's like if then, and it fits into this kind of neat and tidy box, and this is what's going to happen when these criteria hit, I think it's different than that. I think it's like this kind of ongoing AI kind of employee relationship, where I think there's going to be a human in the loop for a long period of time in the future, with the humans, role is training the AI on some of these edge case, related items that, should be treated differently. So like people using, like a spreadsheet to keep track and trace stuff, that can be trained to the AI, and the AI can then create an agent essentially to deal with that. It's changed exceptionally fast, and I think what we kind of thought was real a few months ago is changed, and I think like I'm seeing it daily, like the stuff, um, and I can't go into everything until we do our release, but it's wild and it's very accurate. It's not like I don't see these hallucinations, because it's looking at your data and it's confined to the data. And then if you're training, like a use case, hey, Jimmy Bob only takes loads on Friday because he goes to the lake. Okay, you tell the AI that, it learns it, and it applies that knowledge. It's wild. Like I honestly, I didn't think it was gonna happen for years, but I think we're closer than people realize.
You're on mute, Nate.
You're on mute. Yeah.
How did that happen? Maybe I guess there's a shortcut. Who knows? Maybe
those producers, man, I tell you.
Yeah, it's
Cut them off.
It's all his fault. Yeah. Everything is moving very fast, and it's doubling down. I think it's 7 times more advanced this year than it was last year, something like that. And it's actually, I think it's more than that. It's 20 to 30 times more advanced. Sorry, wrong statistic. But the when you look at accuracy, for example, and this is one of the kind of myths debunked. If you're using just straight up a chat GPT and you ask it a question, it does have a fairly large margin of error. And error may not be it's completely wrong. It may be that it gets a minor fact wrong. It may be completely wrong. It might not get it right. It is far more accurate now than it was 3 years ago. It is certainly along that way. When you apply the agentic side, so you have multiple agents potentially working together, or a defined data set that is, and the agent itself is well trained, the accuracy is very high. It's potentially higher than a human can get it to, dependent upon the skill level of the human. So it's the agentic AI that really gets very, very accurate. And we're seeing all the LLMs, actually, in the case of Claude, and many others, they're identifying themselves as agentic now because there's so many different things going into them. But an interesting piece of tech that just dropped yesterday from Anthropic is Claude for small business. So Claude for small business comes with integrations to QuickBooks, to a variety of different solutions out there like Canva and a few other things. So it comes with this pre-built-in set of integrations, all pulling the data into Claude, and then there's a security layer around it too. So you start looking at that, just to your point, Jeff, and you're being elusive on what you're coming forward with, but you are coming forward with something. There's a whole new level of tools, and as Adam Wingfield mentioned, and many others have mentioned, but Adam mentioned at our panel at Matt's, the worst technology we're dealing with today, or the worst technology out there, is what we're dealing with today. The least, or the most, or the least advanced AI solutions are today. Tomorrow they're going to be better, and they're only going up from there. So Bain, let's talk a little bit about what, and I'll put this one to both of you, but a lot of companies attempt to put in these types of solutions or any modern technology. Why do projects typically fail, even though the technology itself is very good?
Adoption is where so much technology goes to die. And adoption comes from a lot of things. Yes, it is. Ultimately, it is the use of the product, right? And when you are putting in technology that, Jeff, I think you made a great point about track and trace. If that track and trace role is now being handled by an agent, a bot, whatever someone feels like calling it, that was someone's job at one point. And so someone's going to look at that and say, oh my gosh, like here it is. The machine is taking our jobs. Judgment Day is coming. I, for one, bow down to our robot overlords. I get it. Like everyone's scared about this. But what you really have to do is to start the adoption cycle is you involve C-level folks from the jump on the decisions on what products are going to be coming in. They may not have final call, but they should have input. And then why does it matter for them if I'm a rep, say we're working a split model. I'm a carrier sales rep, and I can book 25 loads a day because I've still got to track my freight. I've still got to do the financial pieces of it, collect paperwork, get it into AR and AP. If I can have AI addressing tracking and tracing, following up with drivers for paperwork, getting it over and getting it approved for billing and for payments. And all I'm doing is just booking freight. I now go from 25 loads a day to 50 loads a day to 60 loads a day. And you can extrapolate that model out however you need to, but ultimately it makes more money for the individual. And what do people do? They do what you pay them to do. So if you're incentivizing the adoption and showing people why it works for them, that's when you're going to see technology succeed, versus if you just say, hey, we're doing this because we want to be on the AI cutting edge and we want something cool to tell our customers. Why am I incentivized to do that? All I'm doing is showing that the bot can take my job. I'm not doing that. That's insane. I'm going to show you why the bot doesn't work and you need me to stick around.
So, Jeff, why do you think technology projects fail?
I agree with Bain. Adoption is a big thing. I think pride gets in the way a bit. Like one of the things I hear about, a lot nowadays is we can do it ourselves, right? And I'm not even saying that's a bad thing, right? Doing it yourself.
That's some hubris that you can do it yourself.
Yeah, like some of the things, absolutely do it yourself. Save some money. Go for it, right? I think one of the mistakes that people make is not trying and doing anything, and then you don't understand how it works, right? So you absolutely go do things, but more importantly, like you have to have a strategy on why you're doing it, right? Like what happens? You got this star, kid that knows how to create all these different tools. They're 28 years old. Now they're learning how to adopt this AI in your organization. Guess what happens? That the value of that individual keeps going up and up. Next thing you know, they come to you and say, I want 3 times the amount of money because this person offered it to me. They leave to go take that role. Now what do you do? Right? Now what are you going to do? Okay, great. If you're just looking up like certain things, fantastic. But now this person created 50 agents, which was more than a full-time job keeping up with. And now all of a sudden they're gone. Oh, now what do you do? Right? So it's like, don't let pride get in the way. But at the same time, you have to learn how to use these things. Like I'm not a software engineer, but if you think I'm not doing Claude projects on the side, you're not
projects. So
and they're better today than they were.
When you said everything gets better, so
everything gets better, right? And I think adoption is number one, but why? So why does adoption fail? It's because they don't have a plan. You don't have a plan. So what's your plan? So like a plan should be, okay, why am I going to AI? That should be the first question that you ask. So if the answer is, well, I'm just going to save money. I'm just going to throw it in the system and say, okay, great. Okay, how are you going to do it? Right? Then it's like, well, we're gonna do this. Okay, well, let's
do more with less. We're gonna do it.
Okay, so let's break that down. Okay, so where are you spending your time, and what are things that you think should be done by AI? Okay, booking an appointment, creating a load, bill of ladings, driver calls in for a piece of information, and it's a really simple thing that doesn't require a bunch of, yes, perfect, right? Maybe some of the pricing. It doesn't mean that there shouldn't be people behind the curtain. There absolutely should be. And that needs to be a strategy in itself. But if people just go into it saying, like, I'm just going to go wing it, and this thing is going to just save me money, and like, you could really screw things up. Now, will you catch, some sparkles of greatness, absolutely. And you might feel really good about it at first, but I think you have to have a plan. It can't be transactional. It's got to be well thought through. And some of the really large kind of tech forward companies that I've talked to, they got a plan, and they know where their gaps are to that plan. And in some cases, they're like, you know what, we're going to build this. We're going to try to build it ourselves because X, Y, Z, and 1, 2, 3, 4. Great. When they come back to me and say we're doing it because of these particular reasons, and you can look at this little sliver, that tells me that they know what they're doing, right? Now, when they come to me and say, well, we're just gonna try to take and do all this stuff, I think you should pause. There's great companies like GLCS out there that can help you think through these problems. I'm happy to talk through it. Obviously, I've got a vested interest in selling, but it's just this. Why I liked coming on this podcast and doing other things. It's not to sell; it's to educate people on what they need to do, because selling to a blind person, a blue bag, like it doesn't work, right?
Yeah, I mean, I far surpassed every reason I started this podcast, and now it's mostly education and giving a platform for people to be able to tell their stories on. But the education side is certainly one of the core reasons we continue with the podcast. So so I'm going to do something different.
Real quick, though, Nate, I want to piggyback because when you say that the core message of the podcast is to educate people and to bring light to big issues in the industry, that hits exactly what Jeff's talking about. If you were a transportation provider, you're a trucking company or a brokerage, what is your core competency? Moving goods and services. Mm-hmm. This is not a knock on anyone, so anybody wants to come in my DMs or hit my comments, go ahead. But if you're not a tech company, don't pretend to be a tech company.
Right.
You should utilize tech in your organization, but you're not. If transportation is your core competency and you know that it is, stick to what you are great at and find people that can help you be great at other things. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, we're going to encounter more of that with the vibe coding efforts that are happening today. There's so much that can go wrong with vibe coding in the way of scaling. But if you're a small organization, it's probably one of the best avenues for you to explore. If you're a enterprise level organization, it's probably something you need to be very, very careful with because of security concerns and whatnot. So, but to Jeff's point, try it. I mean, walk down the road and get an education, right? So I'm going to do something a little different. I've got 10 rapid fire questions for you, and I just went off the reservation with these. So 10 rapid fire questions for you. This should probably occupy the rest of our time. So I'll start it off. Jeff, you get the answer first since you're the guest on all of them, because I can't make it easy on you. So, all right. So what is the most overhyped technology? You don't have to name the system itself, but just generically, what's the most overhyped technology in trucking and brokerage right now?
Order entry.
Okay.
Automated order entry. It's table stakes.
What's yours, Bain?
AI.
Okay, fair enough.
It is.
Yeah, that would have been my answer. So, what's the most underused technology in trucking right now?
AI.
Well, yeah, order entry.
No,
I honestly, data overall is the most underutilized, in my view.
Ultimately API connections, and I mean that's widely used but not used strongly enough. Is my answer. One word answer. Is AI helping the industry yet, or mostly confusing it?
Confusing.
Bain. One word.
It's confusing.
Same. Next question. What process should never be automated?
Man, that's a tough one.
I'll flip the Bain. Bain,
I,
go.
I think the management of people.
Okay. Bain?
That's a good one. So I'll +1 that, but closing a deal.
Terminations is mine. What's the biggest red flag in a company's tech stack?
Not having APIs right now.
Bain?
Oof, biggest red flag. Trucking company or brokerage?
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'll APIs. Yeah, that's definitely lack of, I should say.
Fair enough. I go slightly adjacent to the tech stack and say training. What systems do companies blame, or what system do companies blame too often when the real problem is process?
TMS. Yeah. Data. Garbage in, garbage out.
As either TMS or finance system.
Yeah, whatever vendor they're dealing with, but most of the time it's going to be the TMS. Having worked for a TMS, you get blamed for everything, and it's crazy. What is one report most executives trust that they probably should question?
Well, hey, I think the P&L is always something that has to be questioned at all times.
Yeah, I'll say that the balance sheet.
Yeah, so typically I'm going to lean, I mean, you can always question those, but I'm going to lean to an operational profitability report. They're hard. And if you don't have one, then you're doing something wrong. What is the fastest way?
When you're saying question, you mean like you question its validity, or you're just always looking at it?
Validity.
Okay.
Well, like context, like,
yes.
Hey, we're running $5,000 a week per truck. Well, active truck? Well, you got 200 trucks against the fence.
Right. There's so yeah. What's our deadhead? Oh, that's the as an outside party, I'm going to question the deadhead report 100%. So because what's inclusive in that?
What's the parameters around
it? Yeah. Or dwell time too. That's another one, but those aren't as big. All right. What is the fastest way to know if a company's data is bad?
If they tell me it's good.
Yeah, fair enough. Jeff, what's your thought?
Man, data in journals, if are people putting it in, then there's going to be an issue. I think automation helps with it, because if you can automate it, there's a process to getting to ingesting the information. If it's all done by people, there's no process, and it's reliant on the person entering it.
So there's 2 qualifying questions I can ask a carrier that will immediately tell me if their data is bad. First one, is your trailer pools 80% or more accurate? Second one is, how many external spreadsheets are you using? And we chase those at every place, but I will know immediately that the data is bad if they say our trailer pools are horrible. We have no conflicts around them. So that's a great way to identify that. So what technology decision do companies keep delaying that's costing them money?
I'm going to fast forward to today. I think having systems that are capable of the next evolution of AI are going to be critical.
Bain?
The overall technology strategy. Jeff alluded to it earlier. not having a technology strategy means you're either invested in nothing or invested in everything, and either way you're losing money, whether it's money you could be making because of the increased revenue or it's money you're spending on technology you're not utilizing. So having a very dedicated and clear technology strategy is where people are losing.
I second that. The technology strategy or roadmap, as we've defined it, is important. But, even if you're not future looking and you're just saying today, the cleanliness of your data, whether you're deploying a new solution or not, is something that you have to have. So that's if there's a common theme over the last hour, it's been the data has to be clean, right? Mm-hmm. And I've been saying it for years. Everybody's been saying it for years. Your data has to be clean. So if you're delaying that decision, I mean, you're effectively handcuffing your organization to have to complete that project before you do something else. So final question. We made it through 10. They weren't that bad. So 5 years from now, what will feel ridiculous that companies are still doing manually today?
Man, 10, how many? 10 years from now?
5 years.
5 years from now?
Printing invoices and anything back office.
I agree.
Yeah. That's anything back office. Yeah. But especially invoicing, rating, interacting with customer websites, etc. So, yeah, rapid fire. Tried that first time. We made it through it in less than 10 minutes. So, well, I asked more questions there than I asked you the entire time before. So I'm going to start doing that more often.
You did a great job, man.
Technology things. So, all right. Well, I appreciate you both coming on. Jeff, where can people find you?
Yeah, our website is hsys.ai. We're doing some branding stuff right now, so everything's a little bit. We've got a new product rolling out somewhere between June and July. It's kind of this all-encompassing, communication tool. Happy to show people in advance if you want to just check it out. But on the other side, if you guys if anyone out there just needs another opinion, if you guys are ready to go, if you're not ready to go, as it relates to AI, you want to just talk specifics to particular processes, I'm happy to jump on a call or just email me, hit me up on LinkedIn. You can always email me at jeff@hsys.ai, or hit me up on LinkedIn. So appreciate the time, Nate and Robert.
So one final question. I kind of like this question. It was just presented to me. So how many trucks do you need or brokers do you need before you should have a tech strategy?
That's
1, 5, 25, 50, 100.
One.
Yeah, it's probably fair because there's something for every layer of capacity. Like when you start getting into the things that we're doing at hyperscale, it's probably 100+ trucks. Realistically, where you see the value, hit the bottom line. If you're not just looking for like process improvement, but I know there's AI outfits that can handle one truck. So it's out there.
Absolutely. Like I talked about the Claude for small business. Check it out. That we're thinking a different process, but if you have 5 or 10 trucks, your biggest pain point is billing and paying. And if you can streamline that and make yourself aware or whatnot, by using those tools in ways that we don't think necessarily, then that's something for you. So, Bain, where can people find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Robert Bain, Strongest Man in Logistics. You can find me rbain@glcs.net. If you want to watch the powerlifting journey, check out at Bain316 on the Instagrams or Strongest Man in Logistics.
I appreciate you both. We'll catch y'all later. Thanks for coming on. All right. So today's biggest takeaway is technology in trucking and brokerage isn't optional. Whether you got one truck or 20,000 trucks, it's not optional. But it also can't be treated like a easy button. AI, automations, integrations, data, cybersecurity, visibility, all of it truly matters. But none of it works if the foundation's broken. If the process is messy, the data is unreliable, if the systems don't talk, and if the people using the tools don't trust them, then technology becomes another burden instead of a competitive advantage. The companies that win over the next few years won't be the ones that chase shiny new platforms. They'll be the ones that get honest about where they are, where they clean up their workflows, protect their data, connect their systems, and use technology to make their people better. It can't be hard work, or it can be hard work, but that's the actual path, not AI replacing people, not automations fixing bad operations overnight, but leaders making better decisions today, teams getting better tools, customer service getting better service, and companies building a technology foundation that can actually carry them into the future. Take a hard look at your operation. Ask where technology is helping, where it's creating noise, and where your people are still holding the business together with spreadsheets, workarounds, and tribal knowledge. The future is coming fast. It's practically here, but it's coming really, really fast. And in this industry, standing still has a huge cost. Stay curious, stay informed, keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Until next time, drive forward with purpose and innovation. Thanks for watching.